My guidance counselor said something very interesting to me at 17 years old. He told me that I wouldn't live to see 21.
Your guidance counselor said that to you?
My guidance counselor, Mr. Smith, told me when I was 17 that I would never live to see 21, that I'd be dead or locked up. ¿Qué pasa, mi gente? My name is George Torres, otherwise known as the Urban Jibaro from Sofrito For Your Soul.com. I am on when Zay Zay Met, and today he met me. Ya tú sabes.
¿Qué pasa, cómo está, mi gente? I am Zay Zay, and welcome to When Zay Zay Met. Today, we are meeting with one of the pioneers of content creation here for our Latino community in the United States. He is a pathfinder. He is a trailblazer. He is a true bon vivant. Ladies and gentlemen, show your love. This is George Torres, a.k.a. Urban Jibaro. Dímelo, Jibaro.
What's up, man? I think I owe you money for that intro, bro.
Nah, man. Never. You have earned that with every day of your life, brother.
Can I hire you to go around and introduce me to people? Like,
we could work something.
Yeah, that's so dope.
We could work something out. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm a little jet lagged right now, but I'm good.
And
I
you're feeling good.
A couple of days celebrating my birthday, and life is good.
That's awesome, man. And I know that you have lots and lots going on. Let's start at the beginning, man. For people who don't know, tell us a little bit about where you're from. How'd you grow up?
So I grew up. I was born in Brownsville, Brooklyn, raised in East New York, and between East New York and Puerto Rico. My grandmother raised me primarily most of my life. She was a social servant. She's a founder of Meals on Wheels in North Brooklyn. And, a lot of what I do really kind of is rooted in her teachings, what she taught me in the kitchen while she was cooking.
There you go.
I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, so I got to hear a lot about the civil rights movement, about how communities move and how to serve communities. So a lot of that is is what I carry on through the website. The website is actually named kind of like in her honor. Sofrito For Your Soul is pretty much how I felt she fed the community as she worked.
For sure. And I'm guessing that that's where your love of philanthropy and community kind of was born, right? In that kitchen.
Yeah, my grandmother served the elderly population in North Brooklyn. So I got a chance to spend a lot of time with older folks that, to be honest with you, that were forgotten by their families. A lot of people that spend a lot of time alone in the nursing home, nobody to talk to. So when my grandmother was working in her office, I would go down and play dominoes with the viejitos,
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned really early on in my life is that the one thing I didn't want was regret. Because that's, it hits you hard when you hear somebody that's 70, 80, 90 years old talking about all the chances they didn't take. And that stuck with me, So I spent a lot of time just talking to them and trying to get as much wisdom as possible. I always had an affinity for talking to older folks and hearing stories. Yeah. I wondered why those stories didn't translate to history books. And I realized that just not enough of us had access. So when I was an undergrad at SUNY College at Westbury, I started a website called SofritoForYourSoul.com. In 1997. So we're celebrating our 25th anniversary right now.
So cool.
And it's crazy. It's just, I can't believe that thing is still around and that it's actually built a whole career around me with it,
Absolutely. Well, taking it before we continue on with talking about Sofrito a bit, there's something there that's beyond you're getting inspired by the people around you, right? I have the privilege of being able to know you a little bit more than just here. And I know that there's something else there, right? Anybody can be kind of like influenced by the people around them, but there has to be something inside you that feels the call to follow a path, right? And your path is very specific. What do you think that is internally that makes you want to, do what you do, that makes you want to give, that makes you want to create for a very specific community?
I feel like before people even got to know who I was, they counted me out. I'm the antithesis of everything that people said I'd be. I was born in one of the poorest communities in New York, disenfranchised. You know, I just spoke about this at I went to my previous high school, my high school, on Saturday to do a career day. I serve on the board in the community I grew up in, and so I went there to talk to the kids, and I shared with them the room that we were in was the room I did detention in. And my guidance counselor said something very interesting to me at 17 years old. He told me that I wouldn't live to see 21.
Your guidance counselor said that to you?
My guidance counselor, Mr. Smith, told me when I was 17 that I would never live to see 21, that I'd be dead or locked up. And that was a real reality for a lot of people around me. That wasn't so far-fetched, Right. But it was my desire to prove them all wrong. And it's so interesting that, and I'm going to blow myself up here. That was I literally went to the school on the 30th anniversary of my 21st birthday. I'm 51 today.
Wow.
So this was 30 years to the day. I'm sitting in my high school, having survived 30 years of what they didn't think I could do.
Right.
25 of those years with Sofrito. Actually doing something different. You know what I mean? Than what I grew up around.
Yeah.
So it's a badge of honor. It was an invisible badge of honor I walked out of the school with, knowing that, that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And that I continued to prove him and other people wrong, wrong to this day.
What is it about when we were kids, man? It's crazy. You're not the only person that man told that to. And I myself was told when I was young, oh, you're never gonna, one thing or another by a teacher. I wonder what it was about that time that really had teachers a little salty at some of the kids. I can't imagine a teacher saying that to a student today, although I'm not in school anymore, so I don't know if that actually still happens. It probably does, right?
I mean, our school was really racially divided at the time. And if you know anything about my story, the reason, like one of the main things that was a precursor to Sofrito For Your Soul was the fact that I was raised around civil rights activists, not just my grandmother.
Yeah.
I was a victim in 1986 of what they called the Latino Howard Beach incident. The night that they killed Michael Griffith in Howard Beach was the same night that they attacked me and a Dominican friend for the same reasons, right? Because we didn't belong in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And Al Sharpton came to our rescue at the hospital and took on the case. Eventually, we would split from Al Sharpton and go over to the National Conference of Puerto Rican Rights with Richie Perez, former Young Lord, rest in peace, my mentor. I got a chance to really talk to people about the things that make us unequal, and that provide a lack of equity in our communities. And I got to learn all of that. And then eventually at the age of 25, in the middle of a divorce with 2 kids, deciding to go back to college. So I'm going back to college and I'm walking into SUNY Westbury thinking to myself, I'm not good enough because I'm not educated. And then I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of members of the Alianza Latina on SUNY Westbury's campus. And they're talking about the Young Lords. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Richie. And I'm spitting that knowledge. And they're listening to me. They're like, Richie Perez? And I'm like, yeah, like him and, Pablo Guzman and Geraldo Rivera, like they're all like family to me. So I'm teaching them what I learned. And then the girl that I was dating at the time was like, you realize you just taught a master class in civil rights organizational politics. And I was like, what? She was like, you just schooled everybody. Like they're trying to learn what you naturally have around you. Right. Like you have a gift of sharing the stuff that you're learning as you learn it. So you don't need a degree, but you should get the degree. Like she was trying to get me to go to school.
I see.
But she was trying to tell me that it wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It's just that I didn't have the right opportunity. And now I had the opportunity, so I enrolled.
That's man. And I noticed that knowing you now, it seems to be a skill that you've continued to develop throughout your life, right? Being able to do that at a young age in the 80s, and then turning around and still doing it today, right? Like, I learn a thing, let me pass on this knowledge, and you do it freely, which in this age of, hey, buy my course, you know what I mean? It's the fact that you give your knowledge away so freely like that is commendable, really. I can't say that I've ever contacted George and had a question that he didn't answer right away and was like, okay, boom, you do this and do that, or you can find this resource over here, and then good luck. Like,
yeah, the rule of thumb is, I'm a fan of Robin Hood, right? And I believe that my talents expand way beyond the community that I serve, right?
mm-hmm.
So if you have a question and I have the answer right at the tip of my, it's right in my brain, I don't have to research it. I don't have to open a laptop or an iPad to get the answer.
Yeah,
I should give it to you. Why would I make obstacles or barriers to giving you? I'm not a gatekeeper of this information. It's meant for all of us, right?
Right.
But now, somebody from outside the community, a corporate entity, calls me into their boardroom and they want to learn how they can connect with us.
That's it.
They're going to pay the bill.
They're going to pay the bill, for
They're
sure.
Pay the bill. But the interesting thing is that them paying the bill gives me the lifestyle and the flexibility to be able to talk to you.
There you go.
Here as my community member, as somebody who I grew up with, as somebody who I work with, as somebody who I support, as somebody who I want to see win.
Yep.
I have the flexibility of doing it for free for those people because I charge the entity. They're going to capitalize. They're going to make like even at my highest rate, they're going to capitalize and they're going to monetize the hell out of what I teach.
Because the entities are paying the bill, for sure.
That's what equity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we got to get that.
The 80s, right? So you were in a very interesting position, right? Being in Brooklyn, being around all these social activists, being around all these civil rights activists, just being around all these minds, all these incredible human beings that put their bodies, their minds, their souls on the line for the benefit of other people, right? Around that time, a little, actually before that time, a bit before that time, but it was still evolving. Hip hop really took the gang culture and flipped it and just converted it into a different form of energy, something more positive, something so that, young brothers and sisters and Latinos and everyone stopped hurting each other in the streets, right? And then obviously pioneered in a lot of ways by, ex-gang members and leaders, gang leaders. Firsthand, how did you see that transformation happen in your neighborhood and around New York City?
So crazy because, first of all, I'm from East New York, but there was a very brief moment in time that I spent with my mom in the Bronx. And when I lived with my mom in the Bronx, I lived on 187th Street in Crotona. And I had just gotten to the neighborhood. I was, I had tried every aspect of hip hop personally. I tried to DJ, I tried to rap, I tried to break dance, I tried to do everything.
All the elements.
The thing that stuck for me was graffiti. Graffiti was that was the one thing I felt I was good at. I failed at everything else. I failed at everything else. I tried to get into Rocksteady Crew, didn't happen. Okay. I tried DJ, I was off, I didn't have that music talent of counting the beats and whatever. Okay. Everything, nothing worked for me, right? My rhymes were whack, I have a whole essay I wrote about this, but graffiti was the one thing that I felt I was really good at. I liked the community around graffiti, and that's kind of where I kind of gravitated to. I got a chance to meet Crazy Legs, Flex, Buck 4, all the guys that were in Beach Street, like literally a month after they did the movie. Like after the movie came out, like I saw the movie and I was like, I know that guy, and me and some of those guys are the ones that are still around, are still friends to this day.
Nice. And
it's just insane, right? But then I go back to Brooklyn, right? And then Brooklyn, it's weird because the late 80s going into the 90s, it's like what you said, the gang culture shifted to like really high energy party vibes. and then it quickly shifted back to the street. So then I got to see the other side, right? So I hung out with guys from like Gangstar, the Fat Boys, Lost Boys, like those are the people from around my neighborhood.
Okay.
Salt and Pepper used to be around my school a lot because Spinderella was my classmate.
Mm.
So I got to see, you know, so I've always been in the mix with hip hop, and a lot of people that I was around, we're still, you know, we're in different businesses now, obviously, but
Yeah.
we're still connected, right? So I've been around and I got to witness a lot of that stuff firsthand. A lot of those like legendary concerts that people talk about in interviews all the time. I was there, you know.
Yeah.
I was at Union Square when KRS-One did the Bridges Over.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
you know, like every single rapper that was a rapper that had an album out at the time or a LP was literally in the building that day. I'm talking about Fat Boys, Run DMC, Salt and Pepper,
Oh my.
Beat Cats, you know, and I was, you know who I was with? I was with the original members of the Group Home and Gangstar before they were even rappers.
Oh
that
wow.
night.
Okay.
So, you know, so there's so much history, like, you know, and then, you know, at the age of like 16, 17, I started to get to know promoters and I started doing a little club promotion stuff and whatever. And I was always entrepreneurial, so I was always trying to get into something.
Yeah.
You know, I sold mixtapes when I was in college to pay the bills, you know, like, you know, I was all in it, you know, it's like every aspect of the hip hop experience.
For sure. You said it was like a rubber band though, right? So it's like, you know, it went like to the extreme of party culture, and then it kind of snapped back in Brooklyn to being a bit more grimy and I mean that obviously that was the early 90s vibe. Outside of the music part of it, what did you see in your neighborhood? Like what the people that were from the people that were around. Hey, you were I mean, I witnessed some of that. You were partying last week. This week you wearing like Scully's and like what's happened?
You know, the allure to be popular, or the allure to be like the way they would say in Puerto Rico, un bichote, right? The don of the neighborhood.
Right.
That allure got people twisted. And some people went the music route and the sports route. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of people trying to play ball.
Right.
There's a lot of people trying to make music. Other people are hustling. Yeah. But it's all the same thing, right? They all end up looking the same. They all end up with gold chains around their neck. They end up with the nicest sneakers, the nicest gear, and the best cars.
Yeah.
And then all the women that could possibly, you know, women, men, whatever they're pursuing at the time, they get to have like the attention of the community.
Right.
And I studied that attention. You know, a lot of what I do today in social media, it encompasses the civil rights movement. It encompasses what I saw in the streets. It encompasses what I've seen in corporate, because I've done everything.
Yeah.
I worked in corporate as well. Mm-hmm. And I got an opportunity to really watch and see why people crave attention, why people, you know, and I would sit there and analyze, like, if I was that person, I wouldn't do that. Like, you know, let's put it in plain English. If I was the big hustler in this block, I would wear jeans and a t-shirt and drive a beat up van, because I would stay under the radar and I wouldn't have had jealous people coming after me. I wouldn't have people trying to take my spot.
Right.
And there's a badge of honor with the violence, right? That was a big piece of the 80s and 90s. I realized when I started seeing friends of mine fantasize about dying like Tony Montana in Scarface.
Yeah.
I realized that that's not where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in that circle. So I did what I could to get out. You know, I got very entrepreneurial. I left the neighborhood. I have a poem that I wrote that talks about when I left the neighborhood, how people thought I was dead or locked up. You know, but I was literally educating myself, and I came back and schooled somebody on the corner in the poem. But then, you know, I just decided that I wanted something different in my life, and entrepreneurship was always a piece of it.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I didn't want to do a city job. I didn't want to go to college at the time, because I didn't know what college was. We weren't offered those opportunities in high school. We were offered the military. We were offered city jobs like sanitation and transit.
Yeah. That's
what career day looked like for us in our community back in the day. So I didn't know what college was, you know. So it wasn't until I was 25 that I had that I met somebody who was in college, and I was like, "Is Latinos out there?" Like, you know, like, it was just a shock to me. I wasn't aware of that culture.
That's amazing. What do you think is I mean, we could sit here and talk about all of them for so long, but what do you think is the biggest issue right now in our communities that nobody's talking about?
There are a lot.
A lot, right? So we can sit here and talk about that forever, but
I think inaction. I think that the social media does educate us. It gives us access to a lot of information,
yeah,
but what we do with that information is not enough. And that's why there's a lot of people who they'll spend hours arguing in a Facebook group about political ideologies, but will not ever go out in the street and protest and actually do something that's going to change the law or whatever it is that they're fighting. And that it gives us an illusion. It's really easy to say, okay, well, you see me in the forums and I'm fighting for our rights. You're talking to 20 people. You're talking to the same 50 people every day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, so you change your mind or two there. Okay, what does that do? So I like to align myself and I like to be around people who actually go out and do things. When Hurricane Maria happened, I align myself with the people who are on the ground feeding people, building infrastructure, building capacity, documenting, making documentaries about what happened so that we can learn from our mistakes. Right. Like that's what it's funny because you get kind of clowned back in the 90s or even the early 2000s. You got clowned for having your phone out and documenting things, but that's how things change, right? You have to think about it. A lot of these cases with police brutality, would the cops gotten convicted if they didn't have video?
Exactly.
They didn't get convicted when my friends got killed in the streets of East New York. So everybody has a role, and it's up to us to actually play that role to the full. Am I the one to go to City Hall or to the UN and argue about Puerto Rico and the colonization? No, but I'm the person who has access to information and people. I have access to my platform, and I could actually put that information out and educate people and tell them how they can get involved if that's what calls them. So I just think it's inaction. I think it's, a lot of people are emboldened by the fact that they could write a good essay or a paragraph in a chat room and argue with somebody and clown them. But does that really help us as people more than the people that actually go out there and do it and do the thing, right?
Right. If you could go back 25 years to where we were talking about that kid who schooled, who gave a master class to a bunch of peers, but truth be told, you were the teacher at the moment. You can go back and talk to him today, 25 years later, with all the knowledge you have right now. What advice would you give yourself?
Do the impossible, man. I spent out of the 25 years I spent building my business, I'll be honest with you, the first 10 years, I basically subsidized the business. I basically didn't know my worth. And I was so passionate about giving and doing that I just, if the money was a barrier, I eliminated the barrier. Now, mind you, I was in a position to do so. I worked in corporate for years. I worked for T-Mobile as a senior manager for 10 years. Before that, I worked for Kinko's, or FedEx office today. I worked for Marriott International as a chef before that. So I've always had a good career. But as far as the business was concerned, I did myself a disservice by not knowing my worth, by not learning. I was a chef at Merrill Lynch headquarters. I was around the brightest minds in investing.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to that. They told me what to do. At 21, 22, I was sitting with the guy who stopped the Long Island Railroad shooter, who was the #1 stockbroker at Merrill Lynch, gave me season tickets to the Knicks every single year that I worked for him. Thousands of dollars worth of tickets for me to take my friends and go hang out and whatever. And he told me how to get it. He told me, he was like, yo, you just $2,500. Give me $2,500 and I'll show you.
Wow.
And paying the bills and playing it safe, I just nah, that's not my game. And it's funny because that's how I'm getting it now. I'm getting it in crypto. I'm getting it on Robinhood, Can you imagine 25 years ago if I invested in Yahoo? I had the opportunity to invest in Yahoo.
For sure.
And I was already into the internet. I was on AOL, I was on Prodigy. I started my website. Right. My first website I ever built, I built in 95. Wow. And then in 97, I built what became Sofrito For Your Soul. I helped other friends build their websites. Like, so I was in the mix. I knew what
Right.
the internet was, but I didn't know how to be part of the ownership.
So that's the question, right? For I mean, so many people, uh, we just don't know, right? You just don't know. We're not brought up in a way where, our because our parents came through as immigrants, right? It's like, okay, cabeza para abajo, let's work hard, nose to the grindstone, and let's make sure that our kids have a better life than we do. And obviously, generationally, that's what we all try to do, right? We want to make sure that our kids are better than we were, and have stuff that we don't have, and all that. But one of the things that we don't necessarily learn, because again, it almost seems like generational knowledge, is how to get it, right? So that dude for the guy at Merrill Lynch that was your boss, it was easy for him because he's had this information for ever. And so he's like, I don't understand. How come you don't understand this, right? But for us, it's almost alien. Let's say I can get $2,500 tomorrow. What do I do with that? Like, how do you know what to do? Where do you go to find out and to learn that you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck, so to speak? But that paycheck to paycheck mentality that's all we know to an extent, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get that, George?
I mean, me, I emboldened myself to just, again, do the impossible. Anything that people tell me I couldn't do, I just do. And, with the proliferation of apps and other ways to make money, I mean, I built, even though I say the first 10 years weren't profitable, they were profitable enough for me to like get my kids to school, to get them through college, like that kind of stuff. It was profitable.
Yeah.
But it wasn't profitable. Like, I saw other businesses surpass me. I saw other businesses get venture capital. I saw other businesses establish offices. My first office I opened up was in 2014 in Williamsburg. And I purposely went to Williamsburg because I was like, this is our community and it's gentrifying. And I wanted to open up a Latino business in a gentrified neighborhood. I lived in that neighborhood. I paid $4,000 a month of rent for my apartment. Yeah. But I did to prove it to myself, like, we could do this. Yeah. And I pushed myself. But it took a lot of conversations and being very, very vulnerable with friends that were getting it and being able to say, listen, I got this piece. I know how to make money. I just don't know how to build it. I don't know how to make the money work for me.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time with a lot of great people. I have a lot of great people around me now that are continuously teaching me. I'm going to be offering some partnerships with some of them so that we could share that information with the community. So
nice.
It has to be shared. We just can't keep going. And people are interested now. Now, like, especially after the pandemic. The pandemic put everybody like back in school mode, right? We want to do it 24/7, learning how to leverage our skills and how to make money on Fiverr and how to drive Uber and like hustle, right? I don't subscribe to the hustle anymore per se, but there was a time that you needed to do that. Yeah. And I think the pandemic for a lot of people was a wake-up call. And I think I see a lot more people into crypto now. I see a lot of people moving into Web3, but there's still skeptics out there. And the skeptics are the same people who said you didn't need a website to be in business, that you didn't need an app to be in business. It's generational. It keeps happening. Every time a new technology comes out, somebody says, "No, we don't need that. I get money this way," but they don't realize that they get displaced, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I bet you there's still people alive that think that TV is a fad.
Blockbuster never thought that Netflix would take their life.
Boom. There you go.
I mean, that's the reality of it. And there's a lot of blockbusters out there. There's a lot of blockbusters out there.
Let's talk a little bit about Sofrito For Your Soul. Like you were saying, it's the 25th anniversary this year. For those that have not visited and have no idea, I mean, we just talked a little bit about what's in there. Break it down for us, man. What can you find there? Why should I go visit?
It's an online cultural magazine. It's basically, I love Latino culture, and I was disappointed at the fact that we didn't have a place to tell our stories. So I created this platform. Unfortunately, social media, this balance of social media actually put me in a position where the website went by the wayside because, you know this because you have your own platform. The social media was so powerful that people stopped going to website because they got everything in small bite sizes. So we're currently revamping the site. I just added some new staff to the site to be able to deliver things that are both social media friendly and also long form so that people could actually learn something in detail. So we're kind of playing around with a dual model. We have a second site that's going to be a mirror site, Daily Sofrito, that's going to have the small snackable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I hired Whip Vanessa to be the new community like girl on the street. She's going to kind of take over some of my duties. We got Lala on the team, who's my new admin, and we have Ruby and Raz, who are doing movies and music. So we got something nice going on. But in the meantime, I'm focusing on other projects, and I'm focusing on a new partnership that we just developed over the last 2 years. And we just finalized a couple of days ago.
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Like, let it go. Talento Unlimited, man. What's that all about?
It's Unlimited. So this is the backstory. The backstory is I got approached by an agency I do a lot of work with here in New York, and they wanted me to be one of the ambassadors for a Latino COVID campaign at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm all for it, right? I just got featured in People in Espanol for my work during the pandemic, in the beginning of the pandemic. I'm all for it. So I'm starting to work on the campaign, and the day that I signed the contract, I found out that I had COVID. So the campaign was for health and hospitals in New York, which is it was going to be testing and quarantine hotels and things of that nature, right?
Okay.
So they put me in a health and hospitals hotel. Like I literally end up going there by referral from the hospital. I end up in the same place that I'm supposed to be advocating for via TV and film. Like I'm supposed to be doing all these different PSAs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm laying in the hospital. I'm dying. They don't have a solution for me. I'm breathing, max oxygen. They can't do anything. There's no intubation machines, which I'm kind of glad of, because if I would have got intubated, I probably wouldn't have made it. But they were doing everything they could to try to make it work for me. But in the meantime, I'm calling my client like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this PSA, like legit, because I'm in the hospital, and this is real. Like this is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
I already lost a couple of friends, and it's a real thing. So long story short, I convinced the client to invest a couple more dollars and to get some friends on board, get some people that I know from the community that do good work, and get them on a campaign. And I developed a whole campaign from a hospital bed. So we created this campaign. So we had Angie Martinez, we had Fat Joe, we had Luis Guzman, Casper Martinez, we had Nancy Ruffin, we had Eileen, mommy teacher. We had a bunch of bloggers and creators come on board, led from Uptown Collective. We all got together and I had them cranking out content. I was fortunate enough to get them paid for it, so it wasn't a charity gig.
Yeah.
And long story short, I ended up surviving. I'm here.
Thank God.
Yes. I took an experimental medication that bounced me back in 3 days, thankfully, after I took the medication. And a couple of months later, we rolled up the report to the client, and the client rolled it up to their client, and we won a Bronze Telly Award for a campaign.
All right.
On a hospital bed with my partners, because I didn't have my staff active. Like my staff was pretty much laid off because of the pandemic. I leaned on Talento Unlimited, which was my agency. They managed me as talent.
Okay.
I leaned on them to help me out with this campaign, and brought them in, and partnered with them. They took care of all the operations. They made sure everybody got paid. They made sure all the production schedules were on point and everything. And then after we finished and we got the award, we sat down and we were like, yo, this was magic. Like, and we've been doing work together forever because my partners used to work with Hispanicize. So we worked from that place, right?
Yeah.
And it was just magic. And we just said, what could possibly happen if we just teamed up and just, and did this regularly. And we tried it out for a year on an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It was an opportunity for us to work together and split commissions and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well. And we finalized the deal. We officially made it happen. I'm a partner now. And immediately after I became a partner, we signed VinFast, a Vietnamese automaker that's launching 2 new electric SUVs in the U.S. market.
Okay.
We're working with a bunch of other brands that you're going to soon be hearing about on a regular basis. You're going to be sick of me. Y'all going to be sick of me. I swear to God.
Never.
But the key part of this is that we're actually incorporating Ymbra Academy, which is something that I developed during the pandemic to help business owners during the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, A lot of my friends were coming to me, yo, I'm gonna get laid off. Like they shut down the marketing budgets. Like this, all the people that used to get me paid
Yeah.
at different brands were losing their jobs. And I had to thank them for all the years that they've been, feeding me and my family. I put together a cohort and I started teaching them how to like publish their own book, how to start their own website, how to do their own podcast. I started teaching them how to promote themselves, how to like just pivot out of whatever they were doing to what they wanted to do. And as a result, we had some really big success stories, and we called it Siembra Academy, like Growth Academy, right? Siembra Academy.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big thing that I bring to the table with Talento, is that I get an opportunity to train and develop talent. Like Christy does what she does with sales. Like she knows how to go out there and she knows how to get the money. Michelle knows how to keep operations in check and whatever. And I think what I bring to the table is the development piece, right? It's how we're going to take the talent that we have and then develop them. And especially because it's Black and brown talent, right? It's about how we get more equity in the space, is how we get pay equity. But that's another piece. We talk about women and how, absolutely, right? Women are just fighting now for their fair share. But when you look at the global space of influencer marketing, the same is true, right? The Black and brown people don't get the same opportunities that the whites and the Asians or other people get. So we're really focused right now on making sure that we bring our people in, that we develop them to be at the same level as some of these other creators, and that they get paid the same level.
You mentioned Black and brown creators. And one thing I know that one of the concentrations, with the Black civil rights movement in this country is trying to figure out a way, and actually with the Latinos too, is trying to figure out a way to bridge the Black-brown divide, right? Because it does exist. Although we all grow up in similar neighborhoods, and a lot of times we all grow up mixed, especially in New York. We share cultures to an extent because we're around each other so much, but throughout the rest of the country, it can be a very segregated situation, right? Latinos over there, Black people over there, and there is a divide. How would you approach that bridging of the two?
So, it's hard for you to really get somebody out of a space that they already feel comfortable. So I think that where we exist right now is we exist working with a talent that's Afro-Latino. The people who embody the bridge itself.
I see.
And that's the key, right? So through them, that's how other people get to see, oh, snap. She's Black, but she speaks Spanish. She's Panamanian. She's Dominican. She's Honduran. So by focusing on the creators that are the most marginalized, I believe that we could actually bridge the gap, because then people will start, eventually, this, Zay, like the marketing space is going multicultural. Like the Latino thing is ending. There's a rebellion against the whole term Latinx. Like there's a lot going on in the space, and it's eventually all going to be multicultural dollars. So the only way to really kind of embody that is to try to show the diversity of our culture, but by having the conversations that we were afraid to have about colorism in our countries, and some of the real divides that happen that are not America white imposed on Latinos. It's Latinos imposing on Latinos.
I see. Yeah.
So in my mind, that's where it lies for me. Is I see so many really great creators that happen to be Black and Latino, and I want to give them opportunities, and not just them, but everybody, but have them be centered in the space where people could acknowledge their duality.
There it is. You mentioned Latinx, a huge topic for so many, especially in the Twitterverse, right? Where do you stand on the X?
I see it from both sides now. I really stand on the fence with it, because I do believe that on one side of it, I do believe that Latinos have enough things against us to then kind of like subdivide even further, because that actually decreases our power as a collective.
Yeah.
So I'm on that. That's the old school me, right? That's like me borrowing from my grandparents and my parents, right?
right.
But then the reality of seeing gender equality gender inequality in our communities, and seeing how certain people are treated because they don't identify the same as others, makes me think that this is really valid. I have plenty of friends, I have plenty of family members that subscribe to this and have educated me and have told me and explained to me why this matters.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like dismiss that either, you know. So I'm really on the fence. I haven't really published anything in either direction. I just kind of want to see how the space plays out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody whose story is untold, and my job is to create a platform or a stage or a place for them to be able to tell the story.
Yes, 100%. You're a huge proponent and outspoken person about men's mental health. Talk to us a little bit about that and your work in that space.
So it goes back to what I said earlier in the interview. You know, we talk about the whole gangster culture, right? And how we grew up like idolizing Nino Browns and Tony Montanas in film. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. People want to feel like they mean something, that they matter in the world. And in that particular space, if you're the hustler in the block and you're able to give people, you know, I know a lot of hustlers that are not bad people. They mean well and they do a lot of good in the community. I mean, even if you look back to like John Gotti, back in the days, like John Gotti, his community loved him.
Yeah. Scarface, Al Capone was loved. Yeah, I know.
Because they don't operate out of a place where they want to cause harm. They happen to cause harm by the virtue of what they do. You know, and eventually I think that everybody goes through a stage where they kind of like have the regret or they seek out redemption in certain ways, right? I think that men's culture is really toxic. The way I grew up was very toxic. The way that I would, you know, just my junior high school self would say things that I would never say to, like if there was video of me talking in junior high school and it surfaced one day, I would be devastated because that's not who I am today. Right. But it took education. It took me having conversations. I credit somebody very special in my life that kind of refocused me around being a man. And it's ironic because in the public's eye, he's the furthest thing from that. And his name is Joe Tony. He is Shaquille O'Neal's father, biological father. And as you know, the story goes, you know, he wasn't really there for Shaquille most of his life. Shaquille was raised by his stepfather. Yeah. And I got to witness his pain when Shaquille started speaking about him publicly. He was mentoring me at a Covenant House Young Fathers group. You know, I was a teenage dad, and he was my counselor.
Yeah.
So he's educated me about being a dad based off of regret and redemption, and I'm seeing the pain in him while he's being trashed in the media simultaneously. Wow. And I just knew that it took a lot for him to be vulnerable and to talk about some of the things that he talked about with us as young men. And it just gave me a different perspective. So I've always had this passion for talking about mental health, and I let other people do it, and I try to like encourage other people, and I've given people the platform on my space to be able to do so. But now I feel like I want to take a deeper dive into it. Okay. And it's not something that I'm starting something just to have conversation and let them go where they go. And if it disappears, if it becomes irrelevant in a couple of years, I'd be happy. Like, right. This is not something I want to take the charge of, right? You know?
Right.
So I started something. I was inspired by Encanto, the movie Encanto. You know, the whole story about Bruno, right?
Yeah.
So nobody talks about Bruno, but Bruno wore a green hoodie. And I noticed in different parts of the film, whenever they talked about something that shamed him, what the hoodie on? And he was hiding, he was cowering in the corner. And I thought to myself, like, what if we put on green hoodies and talked about those things that we're afraid to talk about? And imagine if you were a kid and you scraped your knee and your uncle came over to you and gave you a Superman cape and said, here, this is gonna heal you. Like, you know, you would just feel a certain way, right?
Yep.
And I'll tell you a funny story. So I belong to a fraternity, right? Iota Alpha. And our symbol is a lion. So I had a lion token, like this little wood piece that I had to wear when I was pregnant. And one day my youngest son, he got scared of something in the dark and whatever. And I just went into the room and I gave him a pep talk. And I was just like, Tom, like, you know, you have courage. And I started giving him this pep talk about having courage and being like a lion. And Lion King was a movie that, you know, I gave him like this whole Lion King like themed speech. But then I took the token off my wall and I said, here. It was almost like a Wizard of Oz moment, right? You have the heart of a lion, like type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing. And
yeah.
I gave him this token. I hung it on his bed. My man never complained about being afraid of the dark again.
Wow.
So it's like, is our words matter, man. Our words matter. Like storytelling matters, and it's just a matter of like us putting the right topics on the table. Like we know how to talk about getting girls, and when we're teenagers, like we know how to talk about pimping and getting the right clothes,
Right.
and we know how to have all these conversations. But what about the conversations about everything in between?
Yeah.
Like why don't we talk about the reason why we feel the need to have so many girlfriends, or to be so admired by women,
Right.
or the need to actually go out there and spend a lot of money on stuff that you don't need just to impress people you don't like. You know what I mean? Like that's where I'm at with it. So I want to start some of these conversations. And again, there's a lot of people better equipped to do it than me, and I may recruit some of those people to come in into my space and do so. But I want to have a conversation about it personally.
I
And I
hear
think it's
you.
I think it's necessary, and I think that nothing bad can come of it. I think nothing but good things can come from it. So
Agreed. I mean, what bad can be had from truly having honest conversations? The only thing that can really emerge from that is growth, right? I mean, especially with us, man.
listen, think
Especially
about
with
all
us.
the things that are happening right now. Think about the whole pay inequity for women. Think about like how men don't respect boundaries when it comes to women, and all the violence that happens, domestic violence wise. Think about what's happening now in the Supreme Court with Roe v. Wade. I mean, and this all comes from us. This is all us trying to run the world. You know what I mean? This is really a problem. And the thing is that I don't think enough of us acknowledge the fact that men are the problem. And in order for that to really, like, for us to really, really embrace the concept of like we're effing things up,
Yeah.
we really need to have conversations about how we effed up along the way, and what effed up things we were taught that we still carry with us today. I'm a work in progress. There's still things that, I probably need to fix, up until like maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was still asking like waitresses to smile. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, so there's little things that, that were perfectly normal when we were growing up, but they weren't right.
Yeah.
And nobody
Yeah.
told us they weren't right. So
Not understanding that things are toxic.
now
Yeah.
we have to unlearn. Now we have to unlearn and relearn. And nothing gives you more perspective than having daughters, right?
Right. Right.
So having two daughters, I know, I know where the missteps are in some places in my life. So I want to talk about that.
I love it. I love it. And I look forward to seeing those conversations, hopefully being a part of some of those
You
conversations.
gotta throw a green hoodie on, my brother. Another time, you're gonna have to throw a green hoodie on. I'm recruiting you right now.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm going to go buy a green hoodie right now. Um, Future projects. I mean, we already talked about so many things and so many things that you're into. Do you have a dream project that you just either you or the world is just not ready for, but I know one day I'm going to do this?
You know, a lot of people will never say this, but when I started Sofrito For Your Soul, I started it wanting to go out of business.
Wanting to
Nobody ever
do?
starts. Nobody starts a business and thinks to themselves, "My goal is to go out of business."
Oh,
But I
yeah.
wanted to go out of business. I wanted to go out of business from day one. Because if I went out of business, it would mean that, because I know how passionate I am about the topic,
Mm-hmm.
for me to go out of business would mean that it would be irrelevant. It's just like what I said about the Green Hoodie Project. For me to go out of business, for me to stop doing sofritoforyoursoul.com would mean that the world is right, Latinos have their fair place in history, like that we're getting paid the same amount of money, that immigrants are not looked on as a cancer to the country, like that people, racial equity is a real thing.
Yeah.
If all those things are aligned, then I'm irrelevant, and I can go out of business knowing that I made a change, even if it was just for the small group of people. I would be okay with that. So that for me, anything that's cause based, anything that I work on that's cause based, my goal is always to be irrelevant. And
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And truly, 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 not blowing smoke, but that's amazing and inspirational. It really is.
I mean, you know, I don't want to do, it's like I'm doing a million things and I don't want to do a million things. I want to do one thing, do it really good. And you know, one of the quote that hit me really, really hard a couple of years ago, and the pandemic really kind of like keeps reminding me over and over again, is based on what I saw in the community when I grew up. When I grew up in the community, I wanted to be seen, I wanted to be heard, but I hustled to be seen. I hustled to drive a really good car, to be professional, to get awards, to do all these different things, all these different accolades. And now I want to hustle to disappear. I want to just, you know, I want to disappear, but I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered. I want the things that I've built to become institutions, or at least be regarded as the catalyst for a lot of people's lives. So, for example, Sofrito For Your Soul, in order for it to survive, I have to have conversations with academic institutions now and say, who is willing to take on Sofrito For Your Soul and keep it as a platform for your writers in your program?
Yeah.
I'm willing to give the website away to the community,
Yeah.
but I have to have the right custodian.
For sure.
I have to have the right steward that's gonna like respect my legacy.
There it is.
So that's and you know and again that's the, like, you know, that's the narcissistic part of me, right? I just want to be remembered because I was forgotten so much. I was overlooked so much when I was a kid. So I want to be remembered. Like that's my biggest passion, and like my biggest goal is to always be remembered. As long as I can possibly be remembered, I want to be remembered.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? I feel the same way. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a legacy, right? And man, I tell you,
there's shame. But when you're in social media, when you work in the space, when you're a person of color, like, there's shame in that. I had somebody tell me the other day that I was bragging about something. I was in Cancun, and I just did a pool shot. I didn't do anything crazy. I was just like, you know, this is my office for the day type of post, right?
mm-hmm.
And somebody from college, somebody I know since like freshman year in college, was like, stop bragging. And I was like, listen, if I shared with you my journey of being an entrepreneur, I talked about the good times and the bad times. I talked about my mental health crisis. I talked about my weight loss process. If I talk to you about different deaths and traumas in my life, if I talked about all of that stuff over the last 25 years of my life, isn't it okay for me to show you how you can get past it? And again, that just puts me in a position where the Green Hoodie Project is even more important.
Right.
Because people don't mind you doing the whole trauma porn, right? They don't mind you telling the story, they can relate to it, and they feel inspired by it or whatever. But the minute you're doing good, they're like, hell, yo,
why are you bragging?
Too much.
Yeah, like,
you know,
that guy definitely needs to take part in that, because what is it about that angered you so much that it motivated you to actually open the keyboard and say stop bragging? Like, you had to physically rage against that for some reason. Like, why did you feel the need to do that?
Definitely mad for whatever reason, but you know, like I said, I share so much. Like, you know, my life has been very, very public for 25 years.
Yeah.
And that has not always been a good thing. That has not always been a good thing. I mean, I can tell you right now that it definitely impacted my marriage. It definitely impacted my relationship with my kids, because they felt like, why do you always need to go out there and tell? But I have to teach. That's just who I am. And maybe they'll understand it now that they're having their own kids, and you know, my kids, you know, are having kids now, and they're settled in with their partners and they're adults. Maybe they'll understand me more now. But I'm sure that it definitely impacted a lot of relationships. You know, I remember one of my cousins one time telling me like, yo, you don't come around here, you mad Hollywood now. You know, so it's an interesting dynamic. You know, it's an interesting dynamic, but it comes from a place, and I want to explore those conversations.
It comes from a place. We all have a calling. And once you hear that call, it's on us whether or not we want to answer it. And sir, you have been answering it and answering it and answering it. And I'm proud to call you friend, man.
I'm still going to be here, man. As long as I'm here, voy a seguir.
I love it. I love it. Dude, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
No, man. You know, the story's unfolding, man. This is just another chapter, like, right? Like, you come back a month from now, there'll be a whole new crop of things, you know?
Happy to have you back next month, too.
Yeah. I will say that for those of you who have small businesses, for those of you who are looking to pivot out of your 9 to 5, For those of you who have a dream project that you want to get out, we have 240 people in Siembra Initiative Facebook group that are there. They're resources because they teach each other. We talk about the trends. We talk about the social media news. We talk about the latest and greatest with what's happening in the platforms. We talk about best practices. We talk about your unique voice and how to make sure that you're heard and you're seen. I made it super affordable. It's only $150 a year, so it's like $12.50 a month. 2 Starbucks.
And
That's all you got to do. Drink 2 Starbucks less than what you're doing now, and you're good. But it's a very rewarding community. I've had somebody who was an assistant principal quit their job and start their business full time. I have a doctor who's on the brink of leaving her medical practice to do coaching for like parents of newborns about healthy parenting. I have a chef that went from being a private chef in people's houses for like private events to like doing corporate events for 10 times the amount of money that she was making doing private gigs. So we have a lot of really great talent in the group, and a lot of success stories already. And, again, I made it super affordable and accessible, so that people could still invest something and feel proud about their investment and then walk away with an ROI. Because if it's free, then there's no ROI, right? It's like, oh, I got that, and then, yeah, whatever. Right. But I want people to feel super proud. And the funny thing is that some of the people who have had the best success have actually invested more. They've actually come to the point where they said, George, your free stuff is great. The stuff that you're doing in here, like the stuff that's included in the $12.50 a month is amazing, but I need more time with you if I'm going to really take this to the next level. Yeah. And those are the people, especially one of my, I always shout her out, Leslie. Leslie has like this small business. She started off selling paparazzi jewelry, and now paparazzi jewelry is like $5 earrings and bracelets and stuff like that. Like it's costume jewelry. Yeah. And today she has her own website. She's signing up for Amazon FBA. She's doing distribution through Amazon. She's doing like little home shopping network videos on Facebook, and she's selling product on a daily basis. Like that's the kind of innovation that we're fostering in the group. So I'm just so proud of all of my Siembra cultivators, as I call them. They're just doing really big things. So if anybody's interested, Zay, I'll give you the link for them to share. Yeah. Chance to get a strategy session for the 150 with me. We talk about 3 things that you could do immediately to have more impact than you're already having. And then you get to go into the group and just connect with everybody and watch some of the old videos and just catch up,
That's amazing. That's amazing. If there's something that I could take away from today's conversation is definitely that there are so many ways to get it that are within our grasp. We just have the blockage of ignorance, right? Not ignorance in a negative way, we just don't know.
No, and sometimes it's the opposite. Like that's the craziest thing. Most of my students, like I love them. Like I love them when they come to me and they have these ideas and whatever. But the other piece of it is when we have too much information and we try to do too much at the same time. And it's hard for me to talk about that because I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that if I learn something from you, if you just talk to me right now about how to invest in index funds, the minute you talk to me about it without me fully having done it myself, I'm already talking to somebody else like, yo, Zay Zay just put me on to this thing. You get what I'm saying? So I'm one of those people. I identify with them. But I've learned over the years to pull it back just enough to make sure that all the verticals that I'm working on are actually profitable. That was the difference for me. The difference was, okay, I'm doing 20 different things, but only 5 of them are making money. I could lose this 15 and revisit them if they're going to complement these 5. And so you hear it all the time. You hear the entrepreneurs like, oh, I'm writing a book. I started a website, and I want to start a nonprofit. They talk about everything at the same time. They want to be a mogul day one. And I've done that, and I failed miserably with multiple times doing that. So I've learned how to pull that back, but I make sure that that's a topic that we talk about a lot in Siembra because I see them coming all the time with 3 or 4 ideas, and I'm like, when you want Shark Tank, they only want to hear the one idea that's making money.
That's it.
I don't want that. I want this. This is what you're selling right now. This is what I want. And that's what I'm going to invest in. So we have to learn how to trim the fat. So I mean, we could talk about this for days.
Yeah, man. I mean, but you're dropping jewels, and I appreciate that, guys. If you want more of this, Siembra, you gotta get on. Shoot, I may just log in myself a little bit later on.
Do it. Do it.
And we get it in. George, man, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to me and to meet with everyone. Continued success, continued growth, and dude, here's to going out of business.
Yeah, that's it, right? Hopefully. Not with Talento though.
Not with Talento.
Talento, we're gonna sell that joint. We're gonna sell that joint and retire.
I love it. But, thanks for being with us, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man, for the years of like just being there. You're always a great community resource for us to leverage when we have a message to get out. I appreciate you for that. I never forget the time that you rock with us at the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and I will let you know we will be there this year live again.
Finally,
so
yes.
So we're working on that right now. We're diligently trying to get everything buttoned up for that. So yeah, man, but we're here. I'm here. Just reach out to me.
Thanks, hermano. Love you, man. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you all so much for watching When Zay Zay Met. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be notified when we upload more conversations with celebrities and other interesting people. Now, if you'd like to see your favorite celebrity on the show, it's simple. Just tell us who that is by leaving us a comment down below. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Hasta la próxima. Lo quiero del corazón.